It's a beautiful morning to pick up something from the John Deere dealership that was getting worked on. As much as I'd love to tell you all that we're here picking up this nice 2022 Hakey STS-12 sprayer, that's actually quite a bit out of our budget. Those things are ridiculously expensive. Although a sprayer would be pretty nice and economical, not to mention how many gazillion of you have been hounding me in the comments for the last 3 years about getting a sprayer. So it's definitely in the cards. Nope. As a matter of fact, we're here picking up our John Deere 7800 mowing and auger tractor. It sprung a pretty major leak in one of the main 3-point hydraulics lift cylinders right here on the right side. We noticed it the tail end of last week. We brought it in because it's an extensive process to pull it off, put a new seal in, and we didn't really want to screw with it. So they finally got that figured out, put back together. Also fixed a fuel tank sensor issue because it wasn't reading the fuel correctly. My Uncle Jeff's going to be the most excited about the fuel tank sensor being fixed, just for the simple fact that he did run this thing out of fuel 2 or 3 weeks ago when he was mowing roadsides, because it's not reading out the right level. So we can safely say that everything's fixed. New seal on that 3-point lift cylinder, and the fuel tank sensor is also repaired. The trouble with going to your local John Deere dealership is it's kind of like going to Walmart. You go with intentions of doing 1 or 2 things and you end up leaving with much more than you'd anticipated. In our case, we happened to pick up this John Deere 2660 VT vertical tillage device. Oh, I'm just teasing. We've had this trade in the works for 2 to 3 months now. Been waiting on it to come in. It is lightly used. They had to do some renovations to it, fix a few bearings and a few other things, clean it off. We figured that we already had a tractor in here capable of pulling it home, so might as well just knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. We're gonna get this home and then talk a little bit about it. It's not really getting up to speed that concerns me with road transport on this combination. It's more of the ability to stop on a dime if that's needed. There's literally 0 chance that this 7800 can pull this vertical till in the field. Okay folks, we made it home. I did question whether or not that was going to happen a few times, but it doesn't matter because we're about to pull in the drive. Let's just say that the tractor is not weighted correctly for the mass of this vertical till. Although it's only 30 foot wide, it is very thick. You can tell by the structures and the beams on it. It's made to be pulled hard. It appears that we are going to go ahead and tuck this thing into the barn while we've got it hooked up to something. And it's also evident that Jeff needs to clean his window. This thing's filthy. Starting to get a lot of green and yellow in this barn. Figured we might as well put it inside because it's probably not going to do anything for another month. Take it over. Back home, we'll get the motor back on. The 7800 is going back to its day job. Mowing. Back to mowing for this tractor for another month. The 7800 is probably letting out a sigh of relief because I think that vertical till was a load just going down the road. Let's go take a look at this new piece of iron. I know that a select few of you may already be familiar with the John Deere 2660 VT tillage device. Not only because you may have one on your farm, but some of the others here may have seen my video 2 falls ago where we demoed something very close to this model right here. What you're looking at right here is the 30-foot and 3-inch 2660 VT, fully adjustable from the cab, true set tillage implement. This is going to be replacing our land all vertical till that's parked outside. This is about 8 years newer, a little bit smaller in width, but much more capable of doing a better job and also much more versatile to different conditions, and is easily changeable because of its true set technology. As the rusty disc blades do indicate, it is used. I think it has about 4,000 to 5,000 acres on it. 1 season old. We got it from a farmer down in the Vincennes area, obviously through Alliance Tractor. We traded in the blue vertical till for this green one. That being said, we're not concerned about its age. The availability of new ones was an issue, not to mention the price of these is ridiculous. I'm not saying that to brag, but for a disc, it's amazing the kind of price tag they can put on it, even for a used model. Just trading from our older land all vertical till to this higher tech, newer John Deere vertical till was quite the financial leap, which is something that I highlighted in my review video 2 years ago, talking about how the cost is a major barrier discouraging people from trading up to this specific system. To explain our rationale for making this somewhat unnecessary trade to you all, what we're looking to do is get a more refined product in our fall tillage program on our corn stalks that hopefully come spring will not require a field cultivator pass for a quality seed bed for our new planter planting soybeans. We're hoping to no-till into ground that's been vertical tilled. We were not too impressed with the job that our land all vertical till was doing. This tillage device, equipped with the serrated blades, a more aggressive disc angle, and of course the very nice rolling baskets, should accomplish that goal. We've gathered from many local farmers that this is an incredibly capable tool. A lot of people have been extremely happy with them, though they do require a lot of horsepower. I know that 30 foot and 3 inches seems like a pretty narrow disc for a farm of our size, and I do not disagree. However, the farmers I've chatted with say that this will pull as hard as you could imagine. You will need a 4-wheel drive on something even of this size. I know farmers running the big 9620R like we have with a 44-foot model, and they're claiming that it is about all that that tractor wants. So take off 14 foot, we're gonna pull this with a 9460R 460 horse 4-wheel drive. Should be the perfect match, and hopefully we'll have a quality seed bed. My personal goal for the set and specifications that we're gonna run this fall in our corn stalks is probably 10 to 12 degrees for gang angle, 3 to 4 inches in the ground, and of course the rolling baskets pressed firmly against the soil. I think this should leave us with a very quality finish, and hopefully come next spring we're happy planting into that without working it again. Much like our newer field cultivator we got this spring, there is a lot going on this vertical till device. The sheer amount of hydraulic lines and sensors and wires definitely might make you a little uneasy when you think about long-term reliability. From what I've gathered from a lot of people though, these things are very well built, extremely heavy, which the 7800 told the tale coming down the road with it, that it is robust and it should run for a long time, and I think we'll be happy with it. Over the last 5 years or so on our farm, we've been making very minor steps to make major changes in our tillage plan for both our corn stalks and our soybean stubble. We are trying to move away from the heavy disc grippers on our corn stalks that cause a tremendous amount of soil movement at deep depths. However, we see a lot of soil erosion, and we don't alleviate some of the drainage issues that we think that should be doing. It may be counterintuitive. That's kind of what we've seen. We're looking to move towards more of a residue management approach on our corn stalks. This vertical tillage should cut up the stalks very fine, refine them way down, and start that decomposition process. We are still believers in deep tillage and think that there is something to be said about alleviating subsurface compaction by working deep. What we aren't seeing though is that moving a lot of soil in the process is necessary. And that's where the second part of this plan comes in. Our Blue Jet Subtiller 4, basically a no-till ripper, an inline ripper as some people might call it, or even refer to it as a subsoiler. This will work deep, minimal disturbance on the soil profile up top, but it will reach down and hopefully break through some of that compaction. Between the challenges of last fall and our lack of additional labor that we had sourced going into the season, we didn't end up getting much worked with this. This fall we are going to aim to do a lot more. We are a little concerned about fuel prices, and I do think that this is going to burn a lot of fuel running 12 plus inches in the ground. It is a two-part plan. We are looking at logistical efficiency next spring by hitting all of our corn stalks with this and being able to no-till, but we're also looking at making maybe better stewardship decisions, backing away from such high disturbance tillage as our disc rippers are, moving towards the vertical till to cut up decomposed corn stalks, and our subsoiler to reach deep into the ground, kind of break all that compaction up without moving large quantities of soil and causing unnecessary erosion and packing that soil back down, because the looser you make it, the tighter it can come together. Every day that goes by, I'm getting more and more excited for this season. The only thing I think that we're going to have to do additionally is find more help. Traditionally, we do everything in chunks. We finish harvest and then we move to tillage. That way we can all just stay focused on what we're doing. We don't have to outsource help. For the sake of doing the best quality of work possible, we may have to find a part-time driver to run the vertical till or the subsoiler, just for the simple fact that it's impossible for us to focus on harvesting and then get all the tillage done or have it guaranteed to be done, especially when things turn off like they did last fall. It got extremely wet and we just didn't have the opportunities to do quality tillage. And spare me the no-till comments. We just have not seen success with true no-tilling here. These dark soils, they need to be worked. If not for the sake of breaking up the soil, the residue from our high-yielding crops presents a very large hurdle, especially when it comes to drying things out next spring. Tillage pays here. I know some of you may disagree. I won't argue against maybe a more precise tillage system like strip tillage. I think that's a highly efficient tool, and I have a lot of appreciation for those who use it. With the way everything's structured for us right now, it's just not in the cards. But at some point in the future, we'd like to try some strip till. Regardless, I'd love to hear all your thoughts on the new tillage upgrade, our tillage strategies, or just what you guys are doing on your farm, or what some of you have seen other farmers doing that you find interesting. Make sure you drop a comment down below. I'll try and get back to all of you when I get some time. While we've got the S670 outside, this is a fairly decent time to address something that concerned me, and that was the fact that the cab had never gotten blown out last fall. Dirty cab floors and a filthy window. Give me something to do for 20 minutes. There you have it, folks. The windows and cab are clean-ish. Although I don't know how to clean this back window to the grain tank. It's filthy dirty. I can't really reach my hand in there, and it looks so much better if you could clear off 8 years worth of dust that's piled between them, because it's very difficult to see into the grain tank and actually assess what's going on. So if any of you have any tips on like how to reach in there and do a quality job cleaning both sides of that window, I'd greatly appreciate it. That should last us for the first 10 hours of harvest. Out of everything I possibly could have selected as my goal for this harvest season, I've chosen something very vanity-based, and that is cleaning the windows on at least the grain cart every day. That way my content looks halfway decent. I do have a lot of respect for the farmers like Mike Mitchell who literally take their boots off every time they get in the cab of their machine. I just don't know that I have the patience for that. As often as we break down and we're in and out of the cabs, I feel like that'd be a lot of tying and untying. It's a little bit tighter in here now. Combines are pretty cool, but I'm just partial to the grain cart. That's just what I'm a grain cart guy. And I'm ready to be in this grain cart. Not gonna be too long. Day by day, more and more local farmers seem to be commencing with some wet corn harvest. I would say that anything worth picking at this point is probably in that 25% or sub 25% moisture range on the corn. We really don't do any kind of wet corn harvest or drying. We just have not personally found it to be cost effective or really logistically required for us to successfully and effectively complete our corn harvest. That being said, I do see why people do it for the sake of covering acres, getting their corn crop out of the ground, and removing any questions as to whether or not we're going to have a challenging fall, when you can just circumvent that by picking the corn early, paying for a little bit of gas, shrinking the corn, drying the corn, and you come out ahead. Most corn here planted in that late April range, which is the earliest stuff, if it was sprayed with fungicide, I mean, we're probably still talking 30 to 35% moisture, which isn't even close. Most farmers, even the ones that harvest wet corn, probably won't touch it until it's 25%. Like I said, maybe if they're pretty adventurous, they might hit it closer to 30. For the rest of the farmers though, we're looking at sub 20 before we even consider picking any corn at all. Our soybeans though are getting closer by the day, especially these early planted Asgrow 35 XF1 XtendFlex soybeans. Something about the XtendFlex lineup, you can see our 3.5s here are pretty mature, but also our 4.0s off in the distance are also starting to lose some color as they reach that physiological maturity or senescence, the end of their growing lifespan. I don't know why the XtendFlex beans are maturing faster than the Enlist herbicide platform. Must be a genetic variation between the two. Regardless, because we are starting to see a lack of color here, on top of just the SDS symptoms we were keeping an eye on 2 or 3 weeks ago, I would pencil in another 2 weeks, if not 3 weeks, and a rain could make a difference on how fast they get ready to harvest. For the sake of maturing our soybeans, a rain can actually be very beneficial because it knocks off a lot of the dead and dying foliage, exposing more of the plant to air so it can be dried out through that airflow or the sunlight, kind of expediting how fast the soybeans dry down. You can see looking at these plants that there's actually quite a few dry pods. I'm sure a lot of these would thresh. Okay, bad example, that one's still way too tough. But we are getting closer and closer. Once you start to see the first large scale sign of yellowing of the leaves, we like to say 3 weeks before harvest. These started to die off a little bit early because of that sudden death syndrome we saw out in pockets. However, the rest of this that you're seeing is maturity coming on. There are pockets that are a little bit behind. I don't know if that's because they're healthier, have less disease pressure, or possibly later emerging. That way they didn't really get to complete their life cycle as fast compared to their earlier emerging neighbors. Really may never know why that is. The yield monitor may tell a tale of the greener spots yielding higher come harvest time, or it may not. That's something that we'll really have to see when the combine comes to the field. Speculating on the yield potential of soybeans is a really difficult and heartbreaking thing to do, just for the simple fact that they can look phenomenal and yield terribly. Shooting from the hip, these beans do look tremendous. I think that they have the capability of being 80+ bushel beans. That's not to say that we could come out here with the combine and see a 60 on the yield monitor. Anything is possible with soybeans. That's why I don't really hold my hat on any kind of yield estimates for them. And that is why we focus on yield checking corn, just because it's a little bit simpler to do and more reliable. As much as I'd like to just stay here rambling and keep you all on the hook for the rest of this video, I think for the remainder of the next couple days, we are going to be twiddling our thumbs a little bit. We are looking at a rain in the forecast, which, like I mentioned, will have an advancement effect on our soybeans in that it will speed up that maturity a little bit. Our corn isn't going to be sped up by rain by any means. We're looking at 3 to 4 weeks at a minimum before that's dried down. Unless, of course, the heat picks up and we get some heavy winds through here to move some of that moisture out of the cornfields, but it's just not looking likely. That is going to be it for this video. I do greatly appreciate you all tuning in. Harvest is right around the corner. Hopefully the excitement gets turned up to another level, with the exception of bad things happening to us, like getting stuck or a lot of mud, things that I don't like, but you guys might like to watch. Anyways, I appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!